Evening, folks. Welcome back to The View for this week's podcast. Delighted to be joined by a man who is no stranger to a podcast of his own, and that is the OG podcasters, and that would be the Square Balls, Dan Moylan. Delighted to have him here. Dan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, just adjusting back to normal civilian life after going up as champions. It's good, isn't it?
It's nice to say it, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels great.
I wanted to talk to you specifically, Dan, struggling that word this week, specifically because I watch an awful lot what you guys do. You are the host of the show, and I wanted to kind of tap into your brain a little bit more and your take on the season as a whole. As we look back at what's been a really successful season for Leeds, but it's been a hell of a year of ups and downs, Dan.
Yeah, it turned out to be the year that I think we all hoped it would be, but there were some wobbles along the way. I mean, looking back on it now, I can say I really enjoyed it. I think. Have you seen the all goals video? I mentioned it on one of our shows this week. All 95 goals. That for me, I was like, my God, we were brilliant all season. And I think I've reassessed the season. Now the stress is all gone. I can look at it and say we were so good.
Yeah, I think you need to sometimes look back on the entirety of the season rather than judging on moments, because there were moments this year where first half of the season I didn't love the football better than last year, but I wasn't in love with it, but I could respect the job that was being done. But at the same time, there were moments of the year where you're like, I just want a bit more, or if we could just be a bit more clinical, or we have enough to get over the line. And then when you look back on the whole thing, you look at 100 points and you look at the gap even to Sheffield United by the end as well. And they did it in some style as well, smashing, I think, nearly every record in the club along the way, which was amazing to see. But yeah, I want to look the whole season, Dan. I want to take us right back to the start of the year, if I can, and look at what we saw happen in the summer. Archie Gray goes, Georginio Rutter goes, Glenn Kamara goes, with a bit of a surprise. I know that everyone loved his style of football, but was a solid player for us last season. We get double the amount of money for him. And then we bring in players of a little bit cheaper. We bring in an unknown Japanese international from the second tier of German football for a bargain, 3 million quid. And there's question marks around the quality of that there. Luckily enough, I'm lucky that we do content with as well as an analyst. And he knew all about Tanaka from the year before. I've been talking about him for a while. So we knew a little bit, but not an awful lot. And you kind of wonder, has this squad gotten weaker? The term that was used an awful lot by everybody was a little bit of an underwhelming summer from Leeds. But when you look at that, Dan, versus the year, where were your thoughts where were you at the start of the season when you looked at that transfer window and thought, right, this is what we've got for at least the first half?
Do you know what? I wasn't totally unhappy with it. I expected the summer to be difficult after not going up last season. I think departures were inevitable. So I kind of accepted that to a certain extent, because I was aware loosely that we had a lot of financial obligations to meet, and PSR was a challenge. So I wasn't too bad with accepting that departures would happen. But it still really hurt, particularly losing Archie. But he was always the really, really obvious one from a PSR point of view that was going to go. I mean, I completely hated it at the time, but I understand why that happened. It was Georgie that kind of caused by surprise, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Any other? Because I think they expected, from what I understand, they expected Somerville to go first. That didn't quite materialise because he didn't get any offers that he wanted, I think, or not suitably high enough level. So he sat on it and waited. And then sold Archie in the meantime. Somerville then did go. And then just when you thought, okay, fine, we're over the bloodletting now, Georgie went right at the start of the season. I think that was the one that caught everybody unawares. Even if Archie hurt most, that one was difficult to take as well. So I looked at it, I thought, I have faith in them to deliver something that's good enough. I know as fans, we're never quite happy. We always want one more player, which I certainly did in January. I think we should have added somebody in January too, just to pick up the slack that we lost from Mateo Joseph, not quite hitting the heights that we thought. I mean, nothing against him, he's just not quite ready yet. Bring that extra person in. But now, with hindsight, I can fully accept that the squad harmony was so important. And that's what prioritising scenes above everything else, particularly when it came to trying to get one over the line in January. He was very particular, I think, about what he would accept. And if nobody fit the bill, then fine. You know, the ends justifies the means, I suppose.
Yeah, it didn't, but I think Georgie did. Georgie hurt, because I think we all loved him a little bit, not just because of how he played, but the smile on his face all the time and the stuff that he did off the pitch as well. He was just a very likeable character, and then all of a sudden you see him go and you're like, well, that's all of our attacking threat gone. That's where all of our goals went. And they talked an awful lot about spreading the load over the course of the season. I think they did it quite successfully by the end. You look at Dan James' output, Manor Solomon ends up with more G&A than Dan James does by the end of the season and doesn't make the team of the year, which is a different conversation for a different time altogether. They did well. Who was your standout for the season, Dan? Of the players that came in the summer, who surprised you the most, I suppose, more so than standout?
Well, you didn't expect Tanaka, did you? I think that was the thing. It was just the most pleasant of surprises. And at that price as well, like, incredible. You're like, when Rodon came in, you expected him to be good at sort of £10 million or more. Solomon, when he came in late, had the pedigree, but the injuries were kind of sketchy, I think. So, yeah, probably. It was, yeah, probably got to say Tanaka, just generational talent.
Generations. I was going to say generations.
Some of us spotted it from the first minute he kicked the ball.
Yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, he's been phenomenal for us. And I loved his honesty as well. I think we like that as Leeds fans. We like players who are really like pure and honest about stuff. And when he had that moment towards the back end of the season when he told Fark, yeah, I'm empty, I have nothing left to give. And you're like, a little bit more now, just there's a little bit left to go. And he does, he pushes through and he performs fantastically well for the last couple of weeks of the season to get us over the line.
He strikes me as quite a quiet character, quite an introvert. You can tell that he's not gone to Vegas with the rest of the boys. So I think he's a bit more withdrawn as a character within that squad. But it does take all sorts. It takes a blend of characters. Nearly as withdrawn as Laji Ramazani be. Yeah, a real wallflower, that boy. His contribution to this. When you think about his contribution to the season and what he's done, kind of milking the celebrations and his own celebration it's so small, isn't it? But he's celebrating in the biggest way possible, which I absolutely love. And he looks like he's having a good time of it in Vegas, shall we say? But yeah, I mean, what footballer? He's just got the brain, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does. It's the Largy celebrating Largy. I suppose Largy by name, Largy by nature. He's definitely doing it up. I think Farkin might have to have the same conversation with him as he had with Harry Gray about you didn't win it on your own, mate. So maybe dial it back a little bit, But they're having a great time. I saw a picture from yesterday, which is winning all over him, and we're going, "You're having a great week, aren't you? This is going well for you."
Just following Parker's example on that bus, it looked like he was having a great time. So if there's ever time to let your hair down and let the fire beast down.
But that's the point, isn't it? Like they've been stressed, and he's been managing everyone's expectation all season. You're like at that moment, and you look at his reaction the final day, sitting on the bench and just taking a minute to go. Thank God that's over now, and we've done it. And then he has the celebrations, and he's right to let his hair down at this point in the season. If he can't enjoy himself now, what's the point? He's accomplished an incredible thing. I know he spits the fans, but I think I'll get your thoughts on it as well, Dan. But I think he's probably, as I say, I respect the job that he's done this season to get Leeds to where they've got to. His job was, he was employed to get Leeds up. They said it was a 2-year plan. He's done it in 2, done it as champions. It's kind of ticked most of the boxes along the way. How have you felt about Daniel?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that was quite hard to relate to was how even-tempered he was all the time. You almost wanted to see something that I suppose mirrored your own reactions, but he never got too high, he never got too low. And again, when you get to the end of the season, I think now, having seen him let his hair down and go absolutely bananas and have the time of his life, that's the real bloke. And then there's the professional head as well. And I'm glad we got the professional head. And you touched on like Chris Wilder before. I mentioned this week, but there's no way I would have wanted our manager doing the same thing that Chris Wilder was doing in that running. Because I think it transmits to the players.
When you look at the back end of the season, we'll talk about that. Chris Wilder goes on TV and he criticises his fans' response to his team. We had the same moment after Luton. The team were booed off the park. Swansea as well. He then goes on the following week after losing the following game to criticise all of the players and saying, literally he went through player by player, Bar's goalkeeper, of how not good enough the performances were. And they proceed then to lose 4 of the next 5 games and ultimately end up falling out of the automatic spots. Where Daniel Farke was to tell everyone at probably the least effective moment for me as a fan that he was 100% convinced we were going to be the Premier League next season. That was after the Luton Town draw. And I was like, I don't know where you're getting that from. I think it's a terrible thing to say out loud because this could backfire spectacularly. It's Leeds. You've put that out there now. It's not going to happen. But then when you look at the reaction from the Leeds side, it's a very different contrast in styles. Like Wilder is your grassroots kind of pure heart, passion manager, where Farke is the cool, calm and collected. We'll get there. Trust me. I think it makes more sense what Farke has done, but at the same time, the way they've handled it, very different, but very different reactions.
Yeah, I think it shows a great deal of emotional intelligence on Farke's part, that what he was doing at that point. And if you caught when Bryn Law was on our show most recently, and Bryn said in the wake of those interviews that he thought Farke was sending a message to the players. And then Joshua Gilavogi addressed that, I think, subsequently when he said, yeah, that's what he was doing. He was telling us it wasn't about the fans. But, fans may know that, but, we are emotional, as Daniel Farke said. So I think, so maybe we didn't need to hear it at the time. Or maybe we did. I don't know, but it was really important that the players got that message. And I think, for Farke to have the emotional intelligence to say, right, this is what they need to hear now, just as they've had a little wobble, because it was the Luton with the third draw on the spin, wasn't it? So you're at that point, that hadn't happened before in the season. So I suppose there's a little bit of, come on, we just need to arrest the slide here and get everybody back on an even keel, just in case the players are starting to doubt. They need to know that I'm bulletproof. So I really respect him for that, for identifying that need at that moment rather than anything else and reacting to us lot being overly emotional.
What did you make of the comment at the time? Because I know when I heard it, my initial reaction was like, oh, don't say that, Daniel. Please don't put that out there. Don't, because the opposite will happen now.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I'm not, I don't really believe in kind of jinxing things. I just thought, I'll shut up. I don't want to hear that right now. I don't need to hear your bulletproof confidence. I need you to tell me why I feel bad. Allow me to feel bad. I was also aware at the time that it was probably inconsequential. And I think I said at the time, like, it's actually quite clever because people were saying, well, what if he's wrong? He's going to look stupid. Well, if he's wrong, it doesn't matter because he's getting fired. If we don't go up, he's gone. So that it gets consumed by that. It gets superseded by that. Whereas if he does go up, he looks like a genius, doesn't he? And I suppose you're at that point in the season where the parameters narrow down to you're either going to be right or wrong, genius or idiot. You know, back in August, there's so many different possibilities. And then as the season goes on and it gets closer and closer and closer, you're either right or wrong there by the end. And he's probably been there enough times now to know that maybe sometimes it's just what's needed. The players just needed that final reminder.
Well, he did a cracking job and they got over the line. But there was that moment you talked about the wobble. I had my wobble. I want to talk about Copium because that is the word of the season. That came up this year. It was Copium. We were getting an awful lot of throwing at Leeds fans from everywhere else. But you guys had your wobble at Swansea. I had my wobble at Luton. I thought it was done and dusted, but this is gone now. We've blown it. We're going to be in the playoffs. You had the spreadsheet, which became famous over the course of the season, your spreadsheet. And I was into it. I was with you 100% of the way. I was like, yep, I get this. And then when it didn't, we were like, okay, we're in trouble now. My Copium was AI models, where I would put the results into AI models every week and just see, are we still okay? Are we still going to get there? We'll get there by the end. And it was all just a way of just coping with this, the stress and the hassle of it and thinking, please, someone else tell me that this is going to be okay and not me. But
whether it's another person or a spreadsheet or an AI model, whatever it is, it's just you want something to tell you that it's going to be all right, and you're all right. And that was exactly what it was for me, completely the same. But I just kept looking at it and thinking, no, everything statistical suggests we should be all right. I mean, my spreadsheet was ridiculous. I had about 10 different tabs on it, like rolling 5-game averages. I even built my own blooming, I won't call it an algorithm, but I even built my own sort of weighted values for the strength of teams based on their home and away points per game, based on who they played. It got ridiculous. Like, I started building my own statistical models. I don't need to do any of this. This is stupid. Just write it out. But I kind of knew, like you say, it was all about, it was taking comfort in whatever I could find. But you know, the thing that actually I think benefited me most was deleting Twitter off my phone. Genuinely.
Oh yeah.
Like shutting out the noise, deleting all social media apps off my phone. And so it did mean I was kind of in more of my own private hell, but I was able to sort of share it with the lads at the Square Ball, when we were doing shows like that. But I think, honestly, the constant bombardment of noise, and I would even say this about the news in the world as well, it can be too much. And it reminded me of being a kid again when I used to maybe stick on teletext once or twice a day on the TV, or heaven forbid if my parents let me phone up Club Call and get some news by a Club Call. But it was just like the constant bombardment. I think you can lean into it too much, Grant. You'll think, I feel bad, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some stuff and doom scroll. But it's a vicious circle. You start to catastrophize more when actually I thought, I'll go walk my dog or listen to some music that I like or whatever. Just do something different. Do it instead of leaning into it, just distract myself away from it.
Yeah, it was the best advice that anyone can give anyone. I backed away from Twitter. I dip in and out, but I took a huge step back from about a year ago, and it was the best thing that I ever did because I found the longer I spent on it, the more wound up I was getting about things and more annoyed, and it was starting to come through, and I didn't want that. And I was like, why am I starting to dislike watching my football team? I love this club. But then all of a sudden you take that away, and after a couple of weeks, it's like, actually, I'm really enjoying this. And I'm also not forming my opinions based on what everybody else is saying. I'm picking my own pages up based on what I'm watching the game and enjoying it again. A huge part of it, the walking the dog thing is massive. I used to do initial streams straight after a game. I stopped doing them. I was like, right, game's over, get the dog, go for a walk, or I'm going out for a drink. I'm getting away from it completely. And I'll look at it again tomorrow and see if I feel the same way. And ultimately, I never really ever did. Once I came back to the following day, calmed down, clearer picture, clearer head, and able to do it then properly. But yeah, it was, you have those moments, but I think, get off Twitter as much as you can. The less time you spend on social media, the better it is for your head. and any day of the week. But before we get to celebrations, two big things that I want to talk about. One's the pre-season that's coming up, or the off-season that's coming up, and the other one is Daniel Farke. Farke got a bit of, I think, badly timed piece that the Mail put out around him, like being 2 days after we'd been promoted, and you're like, still 3 games left to go here. We still have a chance of chasing a title. This is really poorly timed. It looks like a bit of a hatchet piece. But when you looked at the Mail's reputation with Leeds since the 49ers came in, you thought, well, maybe there's something in this. Ultimately, they end up coming out with a statement at the end of the season saying that they're backing him. What did you feel about it, and how do you feel about Farke moving into next season? Because for me, I think he deserved a chance at the job. Again, I say I don't always love the football, but that doesn't know. I want to see Leeds win games, ultimately, full stop. So I think he's done enough. I think if you had ticked all the boxes of your job performance for a year and then found out you're being fired at the end of the year for getting all of them, you'd be a little bit surprised. So what's your take on Farke's situation moving into next year?
Yeah, it's a really complex situation, isn't it? I'm with you, is that particularly in the first season, I wasn't sold on the football all the time. I'm also aware that it takes time to bed in a style, and you need the players as well. And I think the midfield in particular this year was far more suited to what we wanted to do. And this is not like piling it all on the shoulders of Blake Kamara by any stretch of the imagination, but moving forward seemed to frighten him, and shooting seemed to frighten him. But it's a lot more dynamic this year, whereas last year was give it to Somerville, give it to Rutter, make something happen, hopefully. Whereas I think you can see, as you touched on before, the spread of the goals has been so much greater. And I think it peaked at the right time. There were times I was a little bit like, come on, let the handbrake off here, Daniel. But then actually you realise just how long the season is, and the fact that we were able to get it over the line in such spectacular fashion. I think it's probably a vindication of him controlling things and having the handbrake on at times across the course of the season. Now, whether that will translate into the Premier League remains to be seen. I still don't have a great appetite for talking about next season just yet. I'm aware that it's ebbing a little bit now, but I just want to still bask in this nice feeling and just remind myself that, we put ourselves through months and months, 9 months, 10 months of stress to have a payoff, and this is the payoff, and it's been rolling forward for a few weeks now. So I'm happy to keep on enjoying that. Of course, I can't avoid the question about Farke. I think it's quite hard to justify, as you said, taking him out now and having him as not the coach. I think you almost need to suck it and see in the sort of most practical sense. It's just give him a shot. I think he'll probably be on quite a short leash at the start of next season. But, I saw his little face having a good time on that bus and, dancing around and singing the songs. And it's created, I think, perhaps a bit of an emotional bond that didn't exist before. Like, because he was like president before.
Humanise him a little bit more.
Exactly, that's the word. Yeah. Humanised him completely. And it makes him a lot more relatable. So, yeah, give him a shot. I'm under no illusions about the lifespan of a failing Premier League manager. It's a pretty short shelf life these days. So maybe we just need to find out. Maybe he will surprise us and go on to do better things than his previous record would suggest. He's quite bullish about it, isn't he, as well? Yeah. Probably deserves a shot. And I suppose there is a question of, if not Farke, then who? So if it's not him, who are you going to realistically put in, and who is going to guarantee you the thing that you are after in the Premier League, which is not scrabbling around in 17th, 18th, but maybe nudging it a couple of... I think that the goal will be 17th this season or higher. It's quite hard to see who's going to be available now. And that's not to sentence nobody, but I'm saying there are consequences too to ripping up plan and a method of training, because you lose continuity. So the last year.
Leicester, yeah. The players have spoken about that as well over the last couple of weeks, and they said that changing from one style to a new style in 6 weeks was just too much to do.
Yeah. So you hope, don't you? The best case scenario is there's a tweak where it's not all out attack. Both fullbacks bombing on beyond the wingers on both sides. So maybe one goes forward at a time, or you wait for certain triggers. I mean, this is tactical stuff way beyond what I understand the feeling, but the sort of things that you pick out of games, the way that we play, might just be hopefully tweaked, and there is an adjustment in style. The worst case scenario is it completely bombs and there's no adjustment. I suppose you hope it's going to be flexible enough to try that, because ultimately his job depends on it, I suppose.
Yeah, but it does. And I suppose the 49ers perspective, they need Leeds in the Premier League. This investment doesn't work for them unless Leeds finally get to where they see Leeds as the European side at some point in the future. So, and Prague's bullish comments have been criticised by a few other fans online, not Leeds fans, but other clubs and other commentators have basically said he's saying things like Ridsdale once said, but I think the context is slightly different than Ridsdale, as in Ridsdale didn't have any money himself. Prague 49ers have relatively deep pockets, but what are your thoughts on that, then?
Where he's saying they're going to throw everything at it, you mean?
Yeah, the European comment as well, yeah.
Yeah, well, those are not comments for anybody else, are they? In the way that Farker was addressing his comments to the players, those comments are not for fans of other clubs. They're for us, to make us feel confident in the direction of travel. And if you can't be bullish now when you've just been promoted with 100 points, then when can you be? We all know how football can turn on a dime. It can deliver things that you don't want. I think we're all fully aware that it could be horrible next season. It might also not be, so why not be optimistic? Why not be a little bit bullish about it? Because that's the goal, isn't it? They want to make us good again. So, I mean, hopefully they succeed. I think when it comes to like the 49ers and Prague and stuff, they're very sort of message and PR conscious. And I think you've got to be careful not to read too much into it and take too much as absolute gospel. Sometimes it's just the sake of saying the right thing at the right time, I think.
Yeah, I think he did that as well. But it's going to be interesting summer, Dan. There's a lot of things Leeds will need to get right this season and navigate it. I suppose we can't go down the route of Southampton and Leicester last season, where they just threw 100 million quid at it, bought loads of championship level players that were very good in the championship, but then ultimately didn't do it in the Premier League. Leeds need to get this summer right. It's probably been labelled as the most important summer for decades, and it probably is right. That they get this right, they can stay up, buck the trend of the last 6 sides that went up and came straight back down the last 2 seasons. But I keep asking people this: is it quality over quantity this summer? It has to be for Leeds, doesn't it? The surrounding squad should be young enough to develop and grow with that.
Probably a bit of both. I think they're going to have to shop smart and get it right. They've also earned a bit of credit from like Tanaka, for example, and Ramazani looks like 10 million quid could end up being a snip in the Premier League. A lot of it's unproven, and going back to what you were saying about the summer just gone, there were certain elements or aspects of it that were unproven, and yet they proved themselves over the course of the season. So every time that happens, you give yourself a bit more credit, I suppose. And I think when you compare it to what Victor Orta did before, the amount of money he spent, and I'm not saying he wasted it, but I think he didn't necessarily spend it wisely or in a controlled enough manner. And I know you've got to go at it hard, but I think there's a way to do it, and hopefully they can find the sweet spot between quality and quantity. I suppose it is a bit of a Goldilocks thing, isn't it? You're asking people you're saying to the recruitment team, you cannot put a foot wrong with any of this. But then again, I think just everybody they got last summer, they got right. So if we get a similar hit rate again this summer, then good on them. But it's that leap in quality, isn't it? It's finding that those players like Tanaka who are probably capable of the step up a price that's not going to bankrupt you. So maybe you pick up your free here or there. And I suppose the wage structures to think about. So rather than me, I will say, I'm glad it's a problem for them to solve. But I think they've earned a bit of credit, and sort of quietly optimistic that they'll do the right things. Now, whether that is enough, who knows? I guess we're going to find out when we get to August and play a few games. But I hope so. And now, going back to what I said before, now's the time to be optimistic if we can be.
Yeah, let's try and enjoy it. The changes behind the scenes as well. So Angus Kinnear's headed off. He's gone off to Everton as CEO, officially been customs housed out of the club at this point. And he's been joined by Nick Hammond as well. Do you think that makes an impact on what the transfer strategy will be behind the scenes? Because I don't know if Nick Hammond's fingerprints were on everything last season, but there was a lot of similarities to what he did in Newcastle.
As I understand it, Nick Hammond was
advisor.
Yeah, he was consultant rather than fully hands-on. I think he just came in at a time of quite a lot of churn. I think he's been a little bit more. He was moved out to arm's length, so I'm not sure just how much his fingerprints were on the last 2 windows. I think he's been moved more to the periphery, and I suspect that's been the case with Angus as they knew this change was coming. I gather Robbie Evans was a lot more hands-on from a football perspective in terms of developing strategy and leading the transfer window. So I think the team that is in place now, although we didn't do anything in January, has had a run at it and has seen the market. I mean, while Robbie Evans has not been involved in football before, Adam Underwood, the people behind the scenes have been there a long time, so they'll know what's coming. So yeah, fingers crossed they get it right. Got a job on, haven't they? They've got a job on.
Yeah, they do. It's going to be an interesting summer. It won't be boring. It never is with Leeds, but it definitely won't be boring this summer. I think we have a lot of excitement around the place coming into next season, which is nice to have for a change, and hopefully the season pans out the same way. Dan, thank you very much for your time today and having a chat with me. I really, really appreciate you coming on. For everyone watching, you don't need these, but the details to Square Ball are down below in the description. If you're not aware of them, you should be. There you go. They're down below. We can check them out if you want to check the guys out every week. Dan, massive thanks. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's all things being equal, maybe we see you in August at some point just before the start of the season. So if the rumours are true, we shall see, I guess. Currently against AC Milan. If that's the case, then
I've heard that, and but yeah, if it's in the Aviva, it'll be a cracking day. But yeah, if you're there, let me know. And especially if you're looking for places around Ireland as well, let me know. I'll sort you out.
Yeah.
Although you know what I mean as well, don't we?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Cheers, mate. Thanks, Dan.